car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Attorneys. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We have got another big topic to discuss. We are talking domestic relations. That sounds like a lot, but we're going to break it all down for you. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and call the attorneys right now at 1-844-LAW-TALK. You will reach a live attorney. It will be a free call, and it will be confidential, and you'll get good information as we are talking about great information tonight. So let's get over to Josh and our guest for tonight. Domestic relations, that's a big topic.
I had mentioned before we started the show that we have done entire shows on subsectors of domestic relations, like on custody alone or the divorce process or alimony, just shows on that. Yeah. We're going to try and cover a lot tonight and maybe even do a little rapid fire here and there. We're lucky tonight to have Kayla Griffin with the Turner Law Group in Tuscaloosa with us, and first time on the show.
It is.
Fellow Alabama graduate. Let's go.
Right.
Congratulations on that. That's good. Been out 10 years now. How did you get into this area of the law? We're excited to have you on, but how did you get into this area of the law?
So in law school, I actually took a class from Mary Turner. She taught a criminal trial ad class. I took her class and just asked her if she needed help in the summer. Started working with her. She did criminal law, some family law, and when I got on with her full time, she kind of said, here's my family law stuff, and I took it from there.
So at Turner Law Group, are you the one that primarily does this area of the law, or do you have other people in your firm that do this kind of stuff too?
There's three of us, Mary Turner, Grace Prince, and myself, and we all do criminal and family law, but I would say I focus more on family law, and criminal law is their jam.
So let's talk just generally. When someone has a issue that either relates to divorce, child custody, how does the process start? Is it as simple as, hey, look, I take a cold call from someone who's got an issue, tell them to come in, and I want to sit down face to face and talk with them and kind of go through their issue? How does that generally work?
Right. So a client would call the office, or potential client, and kind of briefly tell our secretary what the issue is, whether it's a divorce, custody, child support, and she would look at our calendars and fit them in, and they would come in for a meeting. Sometimes if they're out of town, we would do it over the phone, but I like to meet with folks face to face, and kind of, because it's kind of sensitive, important information that you're gathering from the client and giving them advice on.
Do you find yourself at times almost serving in an advisor capacity or kind of like a counseling capacity to try and help? I mean, you talk about being a lawyer and leading someone through a legal process they don't understand, but when it's a legal process they don't understand and there's a lot of emotion involved, because I know there is in this area of the law, that's tough. And I mean, you've got to really be a counselor on top of just being a lawyer. Right,
that's correct. And I do have some contacts that I pass on to people if they need counseling and things, because it is an emotional, stressful time.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, how do you start down one path, and because of the counseling that's involved in that process legally, you end up somewhere else?
Right. So you could end up somewhere else, and you find there are often, when you've got one problem, there are lots, there could be other problems that come about that you refer them to folks for, to try and help them through, everything that they've got going on.
We get this question every time we do a divorce or a family law related show. We get the question of what qualifies as marital property. I had money before we got married. We're now thinking about potentially separating and divorce. Is the property I had on the front end before we got married part of the marital property? We get that question a lot. So I figured I'm going to hit you with rapid fire some questions today.
So the answer is sometimes. It depends on how the property was used during the marriage. If it was regularly used for the benefit of the parties during the marriage, then it's likely going to be up for division. And we're an equitable division state, so it doesn't mean that your spouse is going to get half of what you brought in, just they're going to get their fair share.
And do you find, do you have, I know Tuscaloosa's family court is a little different than Birmingham, but you have a pretty good bar in Tuscaloosa for family court judges, I would assume?
We do. We have a great bar in Tuscaloosa.
And so really their job, I mean, they're kind of responsible for trying to figure out what is fair to people. That can't be easy.
Yeah, that is tough. We have 2 family court judges, and I will say that recently mediation has become very popular, and a lot of our cases are actually resolved in mediation, which makes it a little bit easier on the judges. They don't have as many cases to try.
Yeah, and just because the viewing audience may not understand mediation as much as you and I do.
Sure.
It's just an out-of-court proceeding, an opportunity to potentially, at no fault, settle a claim. And really, with no negative recourse of communicating about a settlement, it's a confidential process, a way to try and resolve it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's been popular. It's a popular deal that you guys are dealing with.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's very popular in the Tuscaloosa bar. Both of our judges essentially want you to mediate before they will hear a case, and so we've just kind of gotten into the routine that once we get a case ready, we'll go ahead and schedule mediation and get that lined up.
So obviously no different than the civil stuff that we do. A lot of the cases resolve long before they get to trial, and that's just a great way to try and resolve conflict and dispute without having to try the cases too.
And just listening to the discussion, and like some of the viewers at home right now, the other area that seems to come up is alimony. Who gets what, how much is divided up. That can be very complicated itself, right?
Right, and like property settlement, it's kind of in the court's discretion. They have some factors that they can consider. You know, child support, there's a formula. You put in income, insurance, child care, and you get a formula, or you get a number out. Alimony's not like that. There's a couple of different types of alimony. You've got monthly alimony that can be rehabilitative, where a court can order it to be paid up to 5 years. And then you've got periodic alimony that can be paid up to the length of the marriage, or if you've been married 20 years, you could be ordered to pay it forever. And it's, not everybody pays alimony, but if you can show that you can't maintain the status that you had during the marriage, and the other party can kind of supply that lifestyle without being an undue hardship on them, then alimony is probably going to be ordered.
And are there times when alimony was ordered and then someone builds a new relationship after divorce, obviously, builds a new relationship, they get remarried or they cohabitate with someone else? Does alimony get impacted by that at times?
Yes, so if the spouse that is receiving alimony remarries or starts openly cohabitating with someone else, the person that is paying alimony can petition the court to terminate that obligation.
Okay. I know we're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of generally the divorce process from start to finish, how Kayla handles that, and also let's address some custody-related issues too.
The divorce process, yeah. A lot of you at home are wondering about that. We're going to take that break here, but also want to give you that opportunity to get in contact with the attorneys for Hollis Wright by calling 1-844-LAW-TALK. Just keep in touch with the number scrolling at the bottom of the screen. That'll give you the information that you need. We've got a lot more to unpack. We're so glad to have you. Stick around. We'll be back after this.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was We would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
That we would be able to use the resources of the many lawyers we have at this law firm to create a plan that had a lasting impact that also gave back to the community at the same time. And I think we've done just that with the attorneys.
And we welcome you back into the attorneys. So glad to have you with us. We are talking domestic relations, having a really good conversation. You are in the right place. And if you have a question right now, all you have to do to get in contact with an attorney with Hollis, Wright, is call 1-844-LAW-TALK. Someone standing by waiting to hear from you. We were going to break, Josh, and you brought up divorce and kind of unpacking that whole process, and certainly looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it.
Yeah, so Kayla, here's a question I have, because I know there are people watching tonight that say, I'm afraid to start this process, but I know I need to. And I'm all about trying to reconcile, but there are times when divorce happens, and when it becomes almost necessary, and people are intimidated by that process. What can you tell them just generally about, don't be intimidated about the process, you've got people that can help you through this. Like, what's the process of how do you start all the way through to the end? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you are contemplating divorce or think that divorce is kind of inevitable, you could call my office, schedule an appointment, come in, meet with me. It's confidential. I tell people, don't be anxious, don't be stressed. You can ask me anything, it stays here. And we just kind of go through, you know, if they have kids, they have assets, they have debt, you know, we just kind of go through and I explain the process, and then, you know, what it might look like at the end, you know, how things would shake out. So do you want me to go into the process?
Sure,
okay.
yeah, sure.
Once someone has decided that they want to file for divorce, you know, there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. You could reach out to the other side and see if we can do some sort of pre-filing mediation, or, you know, are we close? How far apart are we in reaching an agreement? If not, if there's abuse or something going on where you don't want to reach out to the other side, you may just go ahead and file a complaint for divorce, get the court process started. After that, the other party would be served, maybe get an attorney, hopefully you would get an attorney as well. You would conduct discovery, which that's just the exchange of information, and then hopefully at that point you would do mediation and try and get the case settled, and if not, would have to go before a judge and have a judge decide who gets what and where the kids spend their time.
Tell me this, if there has been some indiscretion that created the need for the divorce, does that weigh in ultimately to the division of property? Like, does that, that's an issue that we always get is, you know, hey, I was unfaithful. I know I'm not coming into this process with clean hands, but how is this going to impact the division of property? And so I do think it's a good question. How do you address that? So sometimes it's hard to prove the ultimate breakdown of the marriage. It's hard to get a fault divorce in my experience, but I think maybe it factors a little bit when it comes to property division, maybe attorney's fees and maybe custody some, depending on when the activity was taking place, where were the kids, and things like that. I have heard statistics over the years, and Kayla can probably help us with this, that, you know, 1 out of every 2 relationships ends up in divorce. I can just tell you, of my contemporaries, that's not even close to reality. It's much, much smaller than that. And I don't know if there's been a change in that statistic, or I just feel like there are less divorces today than there have been in the past. But maybe you can tell me I'm wrong on that. What are you seeing?
I've read something recently, there are less marriages.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I know we have more resources now with counseling, and I don't know.
Well, I hope that statistic goes down.
I hope
Not
so,
for
too.
your benefit.
No.
I know it doesn't help your business, but I hope that statistic continues to decline as best as it can.
And then you also have the remarry.
That's right.
So while it may end in divorce, I don't know how much they factor in those who get married a second time or around. But also, what happens when the other party does not want the divorce? I mean, because
Right.
you may file, one party files, the other one says, but I want to keep working at this, I want this, and they're far apart. How does that come together?
I don't think that's all that uncommon. Alabama is a no-fault state, so if you want to get divorced, you can ultimately get divorced. You can prolong it, drag out the process, but you don't have to prove fault in order to get divorced from someone. So in Alabama, if one person wants it, you can get it.
Talk about custody generally. I do think that this is another intimidating area of what you do for a living. People are very concerned about, I don't want to lose custody of my child, and I understand that I may have to pay child support. I'm good with paying child support, but I don't want to lose custody of my kid.
Right.
How do you explain that to people, kind of the process of that?
So, I think that you start off with children need both parents involved. And what that looks like is just going to depend on who's been the primary caregiver, what's your work schedule, what are the kids' schedules. And I think it comes down to what's in the best interest of the children. We have a standard visitation in Tuscaloosa County, and as most counties do, I believe, which is like an every other weekend, split the holidays, split the summer. But I really have found that most cases settle for more than just every other weekend visitation.
And what happens if someone has, for example, kind of locked in a child support number and they have a change in their circumstance? They lose a job, or they have to transfer somewhere else and they're going to make less money, or they're going to make more money because they're in a different position than they were before. Do those things get taken up by the courts with help from counsel that may have led you through that process to start with?
Right. So I haven't really had anyone come to me and say, hey, I'm making more money
That's
and
fair.
I want to pay more.
Yeah.
But typically it's I've lost a job, or there's been some major change in circumstances. You can certainly go back to court. Child support is always modifiable.
So child support, a lot of people don't understand this, really is statutory. I mean, there's a whole schedule that applies. There's discretion involved in it, but there's a schedule that the courts will follow and help craft some of these settlements on child custody related issues.
So we'll get more into that, and thank you guys for being with us, because I know you've got questions at home, and the number 81844-LAW-TALK. Don't let that chance go by without getting in contact with an attorney who can give you some good information right now from Hollis, Wright. It is free, it's confidential, and they're standing by. We're going to continue with domestic relations on the attorneys when we take this break. Stay with us.
I'm attorney Bobby Bell with Hollis Wright Law Firm. In today's world, social media is all around us. It is common for many people to post on social media regarding their life and activities on a daily basis. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and similar social media are great ways to stay connected to others and to share your experiences and thoughts. Some seemingly innocent social media posts, however, can have devastating effects if you're involved in litigation, especially in a personal injury claim, a contested divorce, or a child custody battle. Courts regularly allow adverse parties access to the other side's social media accounts, allowing relevant posts to be presented as evidence. These rules have allowed social media to become a hotbed of information in the litigation world. In fact, we are seeing more and more preservation orders issued by courts requiring you to collect and save any and all social media activity. Therefore, it's advisable that even before there's litigation, lawyers should advise their clients that social media content may be discoverable. Here are a few helpful tips. 1. Do not post anything about the case. This includes posts regarding conversations or meetings with your attorneys, remarks about your injuries, negative remarks about the opposing party. Do not post anything you would not want read in open court to either a judge or jury. 2. Avoid new friend requests from people you do not know. Many law firms and insurance offices may attempt to have employees follow you on social media in an attempt to gain information. 3. Limit adding new photos, check-ins, photo tagging, etc. Seemingly innocent posts may be used against you. Regular check-ins at restaurants, parties, or other events with friends can cast doubt on any claims of loss of enjoyment of life, pain and suffering, or emotional distress, since you appear to be living life as usual. 4. Increase your privacy settings. Many social media sites frequently update and change their privacy settings. In the litigation context, it is possible you may have to preserve and present anything you posted. Therefore, we encourage you to be smart and careful when using social media. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys. We want you to make sure that you take advantage of being able to talk to an attorney right now, live, free, confidentially at 1-844-LAW-TALK. And we are talking domestic relations as we come back here. And as a part of this conversation, we've got viewers at home who are involved with us. And in fact, Josh, we have a viewer question from Lily right now, and we want to listen to Lily's question.
Hey Dad, I'm a loyal watcher of The Attorneys every Sunday night. You guys do a great job. I might be a little biased, but I have a question. Why did you decide to do a TV show in the first place?
Josh, that sounds like a question for you.
Well, talking about family law, there's my daughter. It's a great question, Lily. And the answer really is that we wanted to give back to the community to answer issues that impact people's lives. This show with Kayla is a great example of that, providing information to individuals that may have questions related to any topic, including family law, domestic relations, criminal law, etc. We try and provide that service for folks. And if we can't help you at our law firm, we're going to make sure that we get you to someone that we can. And so I'm glad we had that question. Good one there. Wasn't expecting that, but hey, glad to have you on, Kayla, to talk about family law related issues. Let's talk just for a second, if we can. I want to do a little rapid fire. College education. Is college required to pay for in a divorce, or is that outside the purview of what the court generally will order?
Courts can no longer order parents of children in college to pay for those college expenses. The case came out in 2013 saying that the courts can no longer order that.
Doesn't mean the parents can't still work through the mechanics of how that's going to work.
Right. They can certainly agree to it, put it in an agreement, and have the court sign off on it, and the court can enforce it. They just can't order it.
Grandparent visitation. That has been a changing, since we started this show 12 years ago, I feel like that's changed 17 times. But where does it stand now? Do grandparents have visitation rights?
Currently, they can petition for visitation rights. So right now, it's yes, it depends. It's a heavy burden to meet, but it is available.
And then I know Art probably got a question, but let me hit you with one more rapid fire real quickly. Businesses. Okay. If someone has a family business, they get married and then divorce, does the family business, can that be impacted by the divorce as it relates to who has ownership in it, that type of thing? Or does the business stand on its own? I know that's a really broad question, and you probably need to know a little bit more information, but in general terms, can a business become a marital asset, I guess is what I'm asking.
It can, if it is used regularly for the benefit of the marriage. So it just depends on how proceeds are used during the marriage. It depends on how was the other spouse involved, and a whole lot goes into that. Business division is it's a complicated issue.
Got it.
Also complicated, Kayla, is the fact of insurance. When you start talking about divorce. If you divorce, can the court order the spouse to continue the medical coverage or health coverage for a child even beyond 18?
So the age of majority in Alabama is 19. So when the court orders child support, they're also going to order a parent to pay for medical insurance, unless the child has Medicaid or all kids or something like that. So yes, the court can certainly order it. Now, recently, when we reach agreements, we typically, I believe the age is 26 now, that you can stay on your parents' insurance till you're 26. So that is kind of what we encourage, but a court can order up until 19.
And also related to child custody and payment requirements, as it relates to child support, does that end at 19, or can it be extended through agreement, through court order? How does that work?
I guess it could be extended through agreement, but it does end at 19 unless there is some child with a special need or some kind of disability that, that it needs to extend beyond.
And then what about last names? We do get this question. I'm always amazed at this, but are there rules about whether you can keep your ex-spouse's last name? I mean, that's kind of an issue that sometimes comes up, and I'm just wondering how that applies.
Right. Sometimes a mom would want to keep the name of her husband or ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband, because it's the children that, or her children have that name. But I think that a husband can actually request that the court require the wife to go back to her former name.
Interesting. So as it relates to just kind of the overall topic of family law, what do you see most often now? What is the most significant thing that you're seeing in the courts? Is it divorce? Is it child custody related issues? Is it child support? What's kind of the big issue that the family courts are facing right now?
So you've got two big issues. You've got custody and then you've got asset division. Sometimes parties are able to settle custody and they can't figure out the money, so you reserve that issue and the court could make a decision. Sometimes people are able to figure out the money and can't figure out custody. So I would just say I think there's a good mix of when custody is an issue and when the overall property division is an issue.
One of the things you don't want to do, I can tell you, is try and go through a divorce without a lawyer. You want someone like Kaylee to be able to, or Kayla rather, to help you through that process. And I just think that's so critically important.
Is there a bottom line of the starting point to get to the end?
A bottom line as far as filing a divorce?
Yes, filing a divorce.
I would say you need a good attorney to help guide you through the process to make it as smooth and as quick and as stress-free as possible, because it really is just a very stressful time for folks.
Tough.
Remarrying, the 60-day rule. I've heard this before. Is there a 60-day rule out there?
Yes, in Alabama, you cannot get remarried until after 60 days that your divorce has been final, except you can remarry your spouse that you're trying to divorce. You can do that within 60 days.
And do you see that happen sometimes? I mean, people try, or are they pretty much, once they get to you, it's generally going to be done?
I have not had a case where my client has remarried their spouse.
Okay.
I haven't. I can't think of a case, no.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. Yeah. You have provided a tremendous amount of information, and honestly, we could have done individual shows on a couple of those topics. Please come back and join us again. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely,
I appreciate
absolutely.
It's almost the type of show that you never want to end.
Yes.
Because the information is so good.
That's right.
And I know you guys got this rich information. Thanks so much for joining us on The Attorneys. You can still get in contact with an attorney from Hollis Wright by calling 1-844-LAW-TALK. And remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Keep in touch all week long. We hope to see you next week for another edition of The Attorneys. So long.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.